So 10 minutes to talk about legal highs.
Legal highs. I mean, I suppose the first thing that it seems important to talk about is what are these things? Because as a user, it's very difficult to be clear what you're actually buying. And as a doctor or a nurse working with a service, it's very difficult for us to know what we're actually working with. Because these substances are being invented, produced, marketed, all the time. New ones are coming on stream. And a drug that was legal, that was legal maybe 9 months ago, has become illegal now. So you mentioned one, spice is one.
Yeah.
The one that is still technically legal, but we're seeing a lot of concerns in our service about it. It's called mephedrone, mephedrone. And I would be very surprised if in a few months' time that wasn't also illegal. So
we're going to have to do this video again in a few months' time.
Yeah.
And do another 10 minutes
What a drag.
on another set of legal highs.
Yeah. But the point about that is that it's very difficult to know very much about these substances because they're so new. And you know, just in the same way that people may have very strong objections, and quite reasonably in many ways, to animals being used to test medicines, well, we're kind of, you know, the users of these new substances are guinea pigs, big time. Big time. You know, there is absolutely no information about what the short-term effects are and what the long-term effects are. And we start to gather information as time goes on. So going back to that drug,
methadone. Yeah, you mentioned methadone, and that's one we know a little bit about now. I think probably had we been doing this video 6 months ago,
we've been talking about spice.
I'd probably have said, what? You know, not heard of it, but now we're starting to hear more and more about it. We know a little bit about it.
Well, should we talk just briefly about mephedrone, which is the one that's hitting the kind of newsstands at the moment. It'll be something different again, but you know, I think this is a good example where it's sold as mostly a powder, sometimes as tablets, mostly snorted, and is sometimes marketed as a kind of plant food or as a legal high, and we're seeing some quite big concerns about it. Do you want to talk about some of those? Because you've been working with one or two young people who've been using a lot.
I mean, they range from not very pleasant, but quite minor, to really quite scary. I think, you know, one of the really common ones that everyone's talking about is nosebleeds.
Nosebleeds.
And some quite serious nosebleeds.
Yeah, big clots of blood, horrible.
Yeah.
And we understand, you know, we're playing catch up with this, but what we understand mephedrone does is the blood vessels in your body obviously need to be working like little kind of pipes to get the blood there, and the mephedrone causes them to constrict, so the blood doesn't get around. And if that happens over quite a long period of time, the bits of your body where it's happening can't live. You need the blood, so that your nose then dies off the inside of the nose, and then obviously when you stopped using the mephedrone and the blood starts coming back, that's why you get these nosebleeds. And
we're guessing it's this same process with the blood vessels that is causing the other end of the scale, the really quite scary kind of side effects, which are these reports of people's limbs, whole limbs turning blue because of.
And what's interesting about that is it seems as though the limbs go blue and stay blue well after the person has sort of come round and is in their head feeling quite straight, but looking at these limbs where the hands have gone quite blue, which again suggests that there's this, give it the long name, it's vasoconstriction, but that's what we're talking about. And if that's happening there, you can pretty much bet that it's probably happening in the vessels around the heart, and that's where, as a doctor, we start to get really worried, because the heart needs oxygen to keep beating, and if it doesn't get it. And there are very clearly now beginning to be reports of deaths associated with mephedrone, and how many vary, but we think, you know, maybe 5 or 6 in Europe now. But that's only the ones that have been reported. We don't know how many haven't been reported.
And there's some other kind of physical things. Some people who aren't snorting it are bombing it, so wrapping it up and swallowing it. And they're talking about some quite, horrible tummy pains from that. But I guess aside from the physical, there's the kind of the mental effects.
These are strong, these are powerful drugs. It's very easy to think if it's legal, it must be safe. And I think that's a really important message for this brief video clip, is to get across, is that legal doesn't mean safe, it just means we don't know anything about it yet, and that the lawmakers know even less. What we know about the cathinone family of drugs, that's what methadone comes from, is that they're pretty powerful effects on the brain. They're changing the levels of a whole load of these chemicals called neurotransmitters, and making serious mental illnesses such as psychosis quite a lot higher. So certainly people using a lot of methadone are reporting feeling quite paranoid at times. And one can see that if you're a bit vulnerable to feeling paranoid anyway, and you're taking a lot of these drugs, it would be easy to get, to some extent, stuck into that way of making sense of the world. And that's where an experience starts to look more like an illness that's coming out. So we have a lot of concerns about those drugs. Thanks very much for listening, and
check out the other videos.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.